We're around 100 days away from the presidential election of 2020. Joe Biden is on the cusp of picking his running mate. And before you ask down in the comments below of this video, I am prepared to double down on my prediction that it will in fact be Elizabeth Warren. I am aware of the rumors that it's Kamala Harris, and I'm still not buying them. And if I'm proven wrong, I'm not going to back away and say that there was a deal to make Elizabeth Warren the VP, but it didn't work out because of the whole BLM thing. I'm going to stay on this ship, even if it's a sinking ship. Also, I do want to give a shout out to Andrew from Don't Walk, Don't Run Productions, or Don't Walk, Run Productions. Always confuses me with the title, because he has a good sleeper pick, and that's Susan Rice, somebody who fits all the intersectional build, but doesn't have the toxic nature of a Kamala Harris, and also somebody who just isn't in the press and isn't being attacked. Remember, the candidate that you see put up before you, the one that's the obvious VP choice, is very rarely the actual VP choice. It's the candidate that doesn't get a lot of media coverage that is usually the one that's going to be the person that people go for. But that's neither here nor there, or as my people like to say, that's neither nya nor nya, because in reality, what we have to talk about today is not the vice presidential pick for candidate Joe Biden. What we have to talk about is the strategy of hiding Joe Biden from the media and whether or not this strategy is a good strategy. And as I can see right now, because of the context that we're living under a pandemic, I'm going to make the case that hiding Joe Biden is one of the best possible options for his campaign going forward. And despite what you might hear about how this is going to cost him the election, right now, if you look at the polls, Joe Biden is the winner. But before we get into that, I do want to point out that I have made affiliate on Twitch, twitch.tv/actualjusticewarrior, and if you want to support this Twitch channel without costing yourself absolutely anything, then please use the Amazon Prime subscription thing if you have an Amazon Prime account. Through this method, you can support me and this channel, as well as get your own ranked Discord role that allows special privileges and immunities in my Discord. So definitely go over there and do that if you have a Prime account. I'd really appreciate it. But just watching some of the streams is great, or watching the video logs of the streams on my second channel, AJW2 Dreams Come True, right here on YouTube, is also great. Look, it's no secret that Joey Bides, as I like to call him because me and him are close friends, isn't the man that he used to be.
Why attack Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man.
He's always been a man that was prone to gaffes and misstatements. However, these seem a little bit different. It seems like Joe Biden, as a person, might be going through the early stages of dementia, or at least has like old man problems that are preventing him from being able to speak well. I've heard a lot of speculation that in reality Joe Biden is not demented, that there's nothing cognitively wrong with him, but the normal cognitive decline of a man his age who has overcome a stutter is what's actually coming up and causing him to do all these gaffes. Regardless, it looks bad. It's not really about what's actually wrong with him. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to play doctor on this YouTube channel. It's about the perception of Joe Biden.
You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were.
And it's an undeniable fact that that perception of Joe Biden, when people hear him talk, is out there to a certain extent.
Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
And it's not just those hilarious clips, it's also clips of Joe Biden doing things like talking back to a pre-recorded question that was obviously just told to him as a previously recorded question.
This first question, Mr. Vice President, is from a voter in California. Let's listen to this.
Okay.
Hi, Vice President Biden. My name is Naveed.
Hi.
I am from San Mateo, California, and thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this town hall with you. I'm right now thinking about that quote.
But here's the thing. Here's the deal. The fact of the matter is, this isn't as big of a deal as people on the internet make it seem. As we've seen time and time again, the internet perception of politics is not how politics actually works. If this was the case, then we would have seen Bernie Sanders go up against Donald Trump 2 times in the general election. You have to separate the internet perception from reality and remind yourself that Twitter, where a lot of these clips are circulating, is one of the least used major social media sites out there. So the majority of people don't have this image of doddering Joe Biden in their mind. The Biden most of the American people have in their mind is Obama's vice president, the vice presidential candidate that 2 times went into the VP debates and went against Paul Ryan and Sarah Palin. Joe Biden is not widely perceived to be demented, no matter how many times people on the internet tell you that. And one of the reasons you know that for sure is just by looking at the polling averages between Biden and Trump. And make no mistake about it, Joe Biden is winning the election right now, today. If the election was held today, Joe Biden would skunk Donald Trump. Now, I could already tell, just because I mentioned polls more than once in this video, that some of you out there in the comments, and if you're not writing it in the comments, you're definitely thinking it, are coming to the conclusion, well, you can't really trust the polls because the polls were totally inaccurate in 2016, and look how that turned out for people. That is an incorrect analysis of what happened in 2016. Just like I've gone over time and time again about what actually happened to Bernie Sanders, and I told people repeatedly in the Sanders camp, people I didn't even want to win, but I just wanted them to stop sounding so stupid on the internet, that not knowing what actually happened in the past will lead to failure in the future. Bernie was not cheated by Hillary Clinton in 2016. Bernie lost to Hillary because Hillary got more Southern Black Democratic primary voters. Bernie thought he was cheated, and without all the cheating of the DNC, he would have totally won in 2020, and then he ended up losing to Joe Biden in South Carolina, and thus the rest of the primary election, because Bernie did nothing to secure that weak spot in his electorate, which was Southern Black Democratic primary voters, one of the most important blocks in the Democratic primary. The same thing will be proven true, and you guys out there will have the same amount of egg on your face if you continually perpetuate the myth that the polls were completely wrong or largely wrong in 2016. That's just not the case, as outlined in a recent video put out by one of my favorite YouTubers, Stephen Michael Davis. The polls were actually more accurate in 2016 than they were in 2012.
We see that in 2016, the RCP average had Clinton up by 3.3 points. She ended up winning the popular votes by 2.1 points, a difference of 1.2 points. If we look at 2012, the RCP average had Obama beating Romney by 0.7 points. Obama ended up winning the popular vote by 3.9 points, a difference of 3.2 points. In other words, the national polls were actually more accurate in 2016 than they were in 2012.
Not only that, not only were they more accurate in 2016 than they were in 2012, but all of the polls were trending towards Trump. If you remember, Hillary's decline in the polls started about 10 days before the election, and one of the things that you could notice with the polls a week out versus the polls a couple of days out is obviously the momentum in the key swing states that Trump ended up winning was trending in his direction. One of the polls often cited as the least accurate poll in all the election was in Wisconsin, but Wisconsin did their last poll a week out, so it didn't catch all of this trend.
The only swing state where pollsters really dropped the ball was my home state of Wisconsin, where the 2 final polls had Clinton ahead by an average of 7 points. Trump ended up winning the state by 0.8 of a point. However, both of those polls were taken over a week out. As Fichot notes, polls are pictures in time, not crystal balls. They look backward, not forward. They can't predict what occurs after they're conducted.
Remember, Trump only won the election by getting about 70,000 votes in 3 specific swing states. And at no point during the election, specifically not at this point during the election back in 2016, was Trump trailing by this big of margins in this many swing states. Look, like it or not, Joe Biden's strategy right now is in fact working. In fact, I would say that the pandemic, the thing that makes people have to quarantine and not hold big rallies and makes you avoid human contact, might have been the best thing that could have ever happened for Joe Biden's campaign. Not Joe Biden personally, I'm not trying to throw shade and say he's a bad guy who wanted this to happen, but it weakened the Trump economy, which was his biggest strength going into 2020. Just look at the polling numbers pre-pandemic versus now. It created a situation where Joe Biden was not expected to hold rallies and a ton of campaign events, which means we wouldn't see events where he would have small crowd sizes, giving people the perception that Joe Biden wasn't a winner candidate. And it also gives him a built-in excuse not to do as many hard-hitting interviews as he should. Trump can't avoid any of that because he's the man in the office. He has to answer questions. He has to do interviews. Plus, there's a crisis built in that the media is constantly fulminating hatred against his response for. Furthermore, Joe Biden is not Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden is not the most hated politician in the United States of America. Remember, the 2016 election was a race between two of the most unfavorable candidates in the history of our nation, and one of them was somebody who had been in politics for 20 years. Joe Biden is largely a likable guy. Even people who disagree with him seem to like his personality. He doesn't come off as shrill and mean-spirited. He comes off as jovial and laughable. He's like your weird grandpa or your weird great uncle. You can't make Joe Biden into Hillary Clinton over the next 100 days. It's just not going to happen. Next, Trump won in 2016, so the idea or the perception that a lot of people who would have normally voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 had in the back of their mind that Trump couldn't win, so their vote didn't really matter. Maybe they'll vote third party, or maybe they won't show up because they didn't produce a candidate that excited them, is no longer a factor. Trump obviously is a candidate that can win, based on the fact that he did win. He's the man in the office. So all of those people who hate Trump but didn't think that he could possibly win last time and didn't come out to vote will show up to vote this time around. Look, the facts are what they are. Trump needs something that he can sink his teeth into in order for him to campaign against somebody. The no-show Biden with the built-in excuse that it's a pandemic and he's not an office holder hurts Trump's prospects going forward. All of the negative headlines and all of the negative things that are happening in our country due to this pandemic and the economic recession that is being caused by this pandemic hurts Trump's prospects, especially when you have a guy like Joe Biden who's essentially promising a return to normalcy. You know what sounds really good right now when people have been locked up in their homes for 6 months and at the time of the election around 9 months? Returning to normalcy. In fact, if I was advising Joe Biden's campaign, I'd tell him not to announce his VP pick until the latest possible moment that he could actually do that, because the VP pick is likely going to be somebody who's an office holder, somebody who is going to be expected to answer questions and isn't going to have the built-in excuses that Biden has. So Biden picking his VP actually gives the Trump campaign somebody to focus on, somebody to attack, which is what the Trump campaign desperately needs right now because the attacks on Joe Biden are just not sticking. Now look, I'm not telling you that in November, over 100 days from now, that Joe Biden will win the election and be the next president of the United States. Nobody can tell you that with absolute certainty, but don't let people delude you into thinking that Joe Biden is not winning this election, and if the election were held today, Joe Biden wouldn't win in a landslide, because that is 100% the case. Stop letting people blow smoke up your ass. Stop letting people tell you exactly what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear. We saw this happen multiple times, and I made fun of it time and time again on this channel when it came to Bernie Sanders and his idiot supporters and his idiot sycophants in the media. You have to actually look at the data and make realistic analyses of what's going on. And you can't buy into popular myths about polls being skewed or my candidate being cheated or any of that nonsense. You actually have to look at the data and check for yourself if these claims are actually true, which is why I'm going to be sourcing the data in the description box for 2016 so you could see it and stop spreading this myth. And more fundamentally, you have to understand that strategically, rigging the polls to make Joe Biden seem like he has a way bigger lead than he actually has in no way, shape, or form benefits Joe Biden. It benefits Donald Trump. If people who are on the fence about going out and voting for Joe Biden think that he's going to win overwhelmingly, stay home because the Biden campaign got CNN or any of these mainstream news outlets to rig the polls in his favor, that benefits Donald Trump. So while there are certainly great videos on why one or two individual polls might have bad methodology or bad sample size, you have to understand that the RCP average is a legitimate average. And again, it didn't get worse from 2012 to 2016. It actually got more accurate. It got better. We're better at polls than we used to be. Polling is not dying despite all of the headlines that you might have read. And finally, do not get into this idea that Trump has the power, should do this, or even should be talking about delaying the 2020 election. He does not. Look at your Constitution and see who has the power to determine what day Election Day is. It's not the executive branch, and it's not being done through executive order. This is a terrible strategy, and I know a lot of pundits are talking about the potential for civil war in the United States of America.
I'm sorry, Tony. He was my friend. So was I. Pew pew pew. Up, kick, Captain America kick. Pew pew. Up, shield. Pew pew. Pew pew pew. Taking face off. There's a turtle.
And if you want that to be your future, then keep up this idiotic talk about how it's a remotely good idea for Trump to even be talking about delaying the election. Bad results can be challenged. There was a case of mail-in voter fraud in, I believe, the state of Indiana, and people examined that, and in North Carolina, and in one of those cases, they had a secondary election. So we already have a remedy for that, but if President Trump decides to make an obvious authoritarian look-alike move, regardless of whether or not you think the basis for that move is a good idea, he's essentially conceding the election to Joe Biden anyway. The American people will not respond favorably en masse to a decision like that. So shut up about it and do me a favor, discourage any idiot that's promoting this as a remotely good idea from doing so if you're somebody that wants Trump to have a chance at winning the 2020 election. But hey, those are just my thoughts and opinions. Obviously they're correct, but let me know if you disagree, your wrong opinion down in the comments below. As always, you guys know the drill. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content. My links are all in the description of this video. Follow me and support me on any and all of them that you can. I really appreciate it. This has been me talking about Basement Biden winning his election. Till next time.